Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Elevate Your Equity podcast, where investors with a special emphasis on couples begin, continue, and deepen their journey to financial freedom together using the powerful vehicle of real estate investing to do it. Today, we have Mr. Rick Martin on the show, and Rick currently resides in Southern California with his wife and two young boys. He's the founder of Fortress Federation Investments, which provides multifamily investment opportunities to his investors and helps them build wealth and multiple income streams. It's a beautiful thing. Fortress Federation is currently a sponsor of 1,185 units, although I have a feeling that might be out of date, while Rick personally is invested in over 2,200 units. He's a background in entertainment advertising, which he leans on to provide educational content to help his investors understand real estate and multifamily syndications. Rick, it is an honor to have you on the show, sir. How are you today?
I'm great. It's a privilege to be here, and that is a mouthful. I apologize. I should have scaled that way back.
You're good. You're good. I like to paint a full picture for investors to know where you are and kind of where you've been, so that they can get the whole picture all at once, and then we can start from the beginning and kind of build up to where you are today. So let's go ahead and start there. Let's talk about where you first got your spark in real estate investment, because when I think of entertainment advertising, a guy from Los Angeles and Southern California, where Hollywood's at, the first thing that comes to mind isn't necessarily real estate investing or a passion for it. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did this all start for you?
Well, actually, I lived in Seattle, Washington. I grew up in Seattle, Washington. So there I was attending the UW, University of Washington, and I was pursuing another life, another career. And it was time for that career to change. But right around that time, I wanted to buy a house. I was thinking, gosh, everybody should buy a house, right? That's what you do. It's a great investment. That's what the realtors tell you. So I was just buying a house to live in, right? Wasn't thinking about investment. I was thinking, hey, it's going to be good for me. That's what people do. But bought it with the intent to live in it. But like I say, the career sort of took a change. Ended up having to move from Seattle to Vancouver, BC to go into school for entertainment advertising, basically. It was further education. And I was like, man, I just bought this thing. I don't want to sell it right away. So I talked to a friend, made him a property manager, which was not smart, but he was handy. That's all I knew. And I went off to school and put a tenant in there, and I was broke, but I was getting these rent checks, and I was like, hey, this is pretty good.
Nice.
And I wasn't working. I'd saved up a bunch of money for school, and also I'd get some loans and whatnot. But I eventually ended up going back down, getting it rented again, and I was like, okay, I'm going to continue to turn this thing. And so I ended up, I think I had several tenants in there, which led to interesting parties. And we had a fire party. What was a fire throwing party, or it was a fire dance party. They were sort of like a goth. It was a goth party, but they would do these fire dances, and the neighbors really loved that. So the whole neighborhood loved me.
I think, Rick, we may have lost all of the insurance folks on this podcast. I think they've just clicked on to another show, I think.
Yes, well, understand, this was my first property, and it was my first experience seeing oh man, this is a bit of a challenge, especially when I'm not there. I ended up moving down to LA and continued to invest. By the way, I was my thing then was, okay, I'm going to buy a property a year, but it didn't really work out quite that way, because it's, I didn't know about leveraging other people's money and, these sorts of things, creative financing and all that. I was just like, well, I got to save up and put the down payment and then do it again. And so that's what I was doing. I bought a place in Vegas when it was hot, and everybody's like, wow, that was a smart move there, buddy. And then that was 2004. And then 2008 didn't look so smart.
Yep.
I think I had close to 300,000 in equity, and it went down to 75K, maybe lower.
Yeah, geez, it's heartbreaking. Rick, we had a similar start back when we were starting investing, and it all started with Sophie's condo in Washington State, kind of similar to when you were up in Seattle and Vancouver, BC. Sophie was also out in the Seattle area, and she had bought a couple of months right before the 2008 crash. So we know
Oh, really?
exactly what that's
Oh
like.
yeah,
And
June 2008 closed on that condo, and then
Oh my
6 months
goodness.
later it was underwater. I was like, oh, what a
yeah, it
great
was
decision.
pretty crazy. But that was what ended up kickstarting it up for us. Rick, was, we had that condo, and it started to, we couldn't sell it because it was still underwater after 4 years when Sophie was in grad school there. And when it was time for her to go down to a residency in California, in the Northern California Bay Area, we had to rent it. There was no other alternative. And that's kind of what got us started down that road. So
Yeah.
similar start to you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and Rick, what kept you going?
Yeah. What
Well,
kept you moving forward with all these properties?
maybe you guys went through something similar, but a lot of people were saying, "Oh, you know what? You just should default on your loan." And basically, like tenants could stay. Well, in a lot of cases, tenants weren't making payments. A lot of people were in trouble at that time. But a
Yeah.
lot of people were purposely or being advised to purposely default on their loans. And I was like, well, boy, I don't want to screw up my credit for life. But some pretty smart people were doing it. I was a little surprised. But yeah, I held on to that baby. And really, I don't know how you guys felt, but I remember thinking, man, this is never going to come back, and I'm in trouble. So it took me a few years to sort of lick my wounds. And I mean, recall everybody's net worth really declined at that time. So you're not feeling really super rich, like, hey, I'm going to go do it again. Some people are really strong-minded that way. They can just go right back out and build their business right back up. I think I took a little bit of time, and it wasn't until about 2011 where I doubled down. I was like, prices were still, I think maybe they were at the bottom in 2011.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, and had funds and actually partnered with a friend. By this time, again, I'd moved down to LA, and now we were looking for properties out in Desert Hot Springs, which sounds really nice, but it's really not. It's not. It's not. It's not. What is it? What's the place? What's the Palm Springs? It's not Palm
Palm
Springs.
Springs.
Uh-huh.
It's across the highway. It's the different area. And we had some interesting tenants over there too. In fact, my partner got his life threatened at gunpoint by one of our tenants.
Man, jeez.
So yeah, this property management thing, the self-management thing was a challenge. But as time went on, and it took me forever to discover bigger pockets and other resources. Like, I'm so impressed with the generation today. Maybe it's because we're so exposed to it, but people are, they have their hands on all kinds of great resources, right? Like podcasts like this, great books, and just the network and the knowledge. And so I discovered bigger pockets by actually, me and my wife were sort of looking for a home, a new home out here near the beach, good school district, near the ocean. And we were just like, oh my God, these prices they're crazy. We had a duplex in the Mid-Wilshire area, which is in LA, in a more like Hollywoodish kind of area. And yeah, we sort of want to trade into a property out near the water, and because we both love the ocean, good schools. We're basically just had our first, and we had another one. Well, we didn't have another one on the way at that time, but now we have another one. In any case, while I'm looking around, like on Redfin and Zillow, I come across this bigger pockets. I'm like, what's this? I think it had a link to some forum that was talking about maybe homes out in near the water or whatever in the LA area. And I was like, man, look at all these topics that they're talking about. And I just got into it. And then I started listening to that podcast. And it was so much later in life, and I do wish, I wish I discovered like this something much sooner in life. But thankfully I discovered it, and started networking on there. And I actually met this guy named Derek on there. Nice guy.
Let's talk about this. He sounds like a real jerk, though.
No, he was pretty nice. He was very outgoing network wise. Like, he was like, hey, I saw that you're interested in Indianapolis. I'm interested in Indianapolis. I'm going out there, like, I don't know, next week. I think maybe I had put something out there saying, hey, I'm coming to Indianapolis. I'm going to do a bunch of recon out there. Anybody else? And then we started talking, Derek. Um, and,
That's
and
really cool.
yeah, yeah. And I think your listeners have figured it out now. I'm talking about you. And and so yeah, you and I ended up out there at the same time. What was that? 2016, 17?
It was a while back. This is before we had done any investing. We were just kind of doing our real like due diligence, and I think this was middle or end of 2017. So yeah, and that was only 4 years ago. Now I think about it, like we have been, both you and I have been on a crazy journey over these last 4 years. But before we talk about that, Rick, I wanted to actually
I want to come back to that.
Okay, we'll go back to that. Well, maybe I'll let you continue, because I wanted to go back to what your wife's thoughts were as you guys were starting to get into this. But yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. Oh, I'll just put a button on that story. I just remember I met both of you guys in Indy, and I can't remember where we rendezvoused, but we're walking over to this meetup, and you were walking in front of me. We were with other people. I can't remember who they were at that time, but you turned around to me and you goes, you know where it's at, man. I think it's multifamily. You can increase the NOI, and we started. And I was like, yeah. I know. I've been onto that too. We've been talking about those were like the buds, right? And then Sophie, you're like, I really like the book Cash Flow Quadrant. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense to me. That's my favorite book. These are like just memories that I can remember.
That is so cool. I do vaguely remember that. Oh man, that's really
cool. And anyway, I liked you guys. We ended up having a good time that time. We've stayed in touch all along. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great story. I mean, it brings back so many memories. And back then, like I was very naive to the whole process, to everything. You had a lot more experience, hands-on, and we had never really had a rental property at that point, except for the one in California that we had when we were starting back in 2015, just playing around with it. Yeah, it really made a big impression on me, like that you're coming out here to investigate and do some recon and expand in Indianapolis. It made me feel good that this was a market that other people were looking at. It was a good sense of validation for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember people looked at us Californians as sort of like fools, like, oh man, that's really, everything's on sale out here. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's not
all relative. It kind of was at that time.
It was. The truth of the matter is that it very much was back then. Yeah.
And I remember thinking, we were at the apex. Like, okay, can't go up any more than this. This is definitely the height of the market. I remember people talking that way.
Yep.
Not even close.
It wasn't. Yeah, I don't think we were even halfway up at that point. That's the crazy thing. Now let's go back to your days in SoCal, and you stumbled upon Bigger Pockets, right? You guys have had this experience with these rental properties up north and also where you are down in California. What was your wife's attitudes like when you were looking to maybe expand your holdings and get going? Was there any convincing needed, or was she kind of on board with you the whole time? How did that dynamic go down?
I'm super lucky or fortunate. She and I knew this basically the day I met her, that she's, like you'll see those Academy Award speeches where I want to say I love my wife and I thank her so much because she's so supportive. Well, that's kind of like what I can say about my wife.
That's cool.
Like she always grounds me. I think at that time, you would think, hey, we're looking for a nice place to live. Basically the traditional American dream where, we're going to put our kid in a good school, looking for a nice place. And have to continue to work our jobs. Now, luckily, I had read the Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was always sharing. I don't think she read it, but I was always sharing the big takeaways. And one of the big takeaways was don't put your money into liabilities, put them into assets. And that just clicked with her. And I asked her. I even read so I write a lot of blog articles, and I wrote a blog article on this very topic. Where what do you want first? Do you want the American dream, or do you want financial freedom? And we talked about that, and she was on board, and which is great because in that article also I talk about, well, we could go out, we could put down like 5-6K a month into a mortgage, which you guys know about.
Very well.
Southern, like California mortgages, they're not so cheap. Or we could go buy an apartment, and maybe if we're really lucky, maybe we'll get paid 5 or 6K or 4K, whatever it may be. And she was on board with that. It just made sense to her. And you sacrifice, right? When you're renting, we had the option of buying or renting. When you're renting, it just feels different. I don't know how you guys feel. There's a bit of a sacrifice there. It's not your place. Sometimes you like that grounded feeling of it being your home. So you're giving up something there, but really financially, it doesn't make a ton of sense. To be on the hook. If you're going to be on the hook for 5-6K, you're going to be working. And if you're trying to escape that type of lifestyle where you're having to commute every day and work for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, basically, you're giving away 40, 50 hours of your life a week. Then yeah, you can do that. You can work for your house basically. But anyway, she was so supportive, and she always is supportive. You guys probably understand things don't always go your way in multifamily. You may be expecting, I don't know, things just to go a different way, a better way, right? And maybe they don't. And I'm not the greatest with that, handling that. I wish I could say I was bulletproof, but it's hard not to. If the results aren't what you expected, it's easy to sort of kind of get a little down on yourself. And thank goodness, like she just has a clarity and a real sort of meditational way of looking at things. And she definitely she plays a big role.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask him. I'm sorry. I know that Sophie wants to ask a question. Hopefully I'm not going to ask hers, but it was, one thing is that our spouses are very influential in how we select properties and what we do with our business strategy, right? In what ways would you say that your wife has helped impact you there? I know that you kind of touched on that with when issues come up, she's helping you, but was she involved in some of the strategy forming and some of the brainstorming and some of the enabling to get you to the multifamily stage, or how did that all work?
Well, she, technically, she is an interior designer. So actually, when I was doing flips and burrs and whatnot, doing the renovations, I would always run finishes by her and whatever, countertops and faucets and all that fun stuff, paint colors, all that. I tend to like that kind of thing, but always would run it by her. In terms of the numbers, and she's not too involved in that. That's mostly me. And I love to do the sub-market research, and I love all that. It's more, I would say now, I'm involved with investors, right? And she's very helpful in terms of helping me sort of gain a feel for people. And I'll run things by her. Like if an investor concern comes up and they've taken something the wrong way or whatever, it's a touchy subject or whatever, she's very, very helpful. I can run things by her, and before I say something really stupid.
Go for it if you have a question.
Yeah, I was when you, that's exactly what I was going to ask, just what specific ways does your wife, and what is your wife's name?
Renata, now she's from Brazil, so they, for some reason, they pronounce their R's like their H's. I haven't really figured out why, but you would say her name Renata, and my name is Rick. Or some people call me Ricky still. So her dad will call me Hickey.
This is great. Do you want us to cut that out? Because we can
No,
cut that
I
out.
want to cut that out.
Okay, that's taken.
Can we cut
You
it?
got it.
Let's take.
You can keep that. I wouldn't have
we're,
said
keep-
it.
we're keeping that in.
That's so good.
Sorry, so.
Yeah, I was just Derek pretty much asked my question, but in addition to that, what other like mindset pillars have you really honed in on or cultivated over the past 5 years or so as you're scaling your portfolio? And if you're willing to share kind of a really tough time you've encountered and how you got through that.
For me personally, I'm not that Tony Robbins guy, or I haven't been, I should say. But I'll listen now, and I'll be more open-minded to it. And I understand I sort of need that. I certainly wouldn't mind having, I don't know what you call a life coach or something like that, along those lines. It's actually my wife who sort of influenced me. Hey, this is good stuff on YouTube, and she'll give me certain things to listen to.
Nice.
And like Jim Rohn and things along those lines. I kind of said it before, where really naturally, I sort of the type of guy who will like, oh, that hurts, and lick my wounds and feel sorry for myself for 48 hours. And then I'll start to come out of the fog and start to sort of pick up the pieces or understand, come on, quit being such a wimp, or don't play the victim. Never play the victim. But I'll be very guilty of being a victim, for a day or two, and then my wife says, you're such an idiot, and she won't say it. My wife is so sweet; she would never say those words, but maybe she thinks them. I don't know.
She's probably thinking lovingly, or she's. I think what she's trying to do is help you, get yourself back into the normal swing of things, and I think that's awesome. So when you do have a difficult time come, do you have this image in your head of you're like, okay, this is only going to be here for a few days. I just need to stick with it, process this, figure out what the next actions are, and go through it. Can you go deeper into that mindset process, like how you deal with these difficulties?
It's super simple. Like for me, things always work out. They can always work out if you allow them to work out. And allowing that bad juju, that bad energy to overtake you, it's not going to do you any good, right?
Yeah.
So we all have the ability to do something positive about it. It's just, for me personally, I just know I'm not one of those guys like, unfazed. Oh, well, on to the next. I'm not like that. I wish I was. There are a few athletes that just blow my mind. Like, they'll throw an interception at a crucial time. They'll do something where the whole world is watching, and they just like unfazed. I'm like, wow, I'd love that mindset. But like I say, I go through my little temporary valley, and then I just tell myself, look, we can fix this. And I talk to people. Again, I would love a mentor, in that who's been through all the things that I have been through. And, I have a few people that I can call. Ivan Barrett sort of comes to mind. You know Ivan?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
He's a great guy. Like, he's a good guy too. I haven't talked to him for a while, but he's helped me through some stuff before. So, gosh, I think if I was, recommending something to someone, I would say if you could find a mentor, that would be the best thing. So you don't have to just completely rely upon yourself, and definitely find yourself a good significant other, because they really come in handy. And also, my kids pick me up unbelievably. Like, I was never a kid guy. Like, I was like, oh, I can't wait to have kids. I was never like that. Didn't really think I was going to have kids. And lo and behold, I have 2 boys, and I learned so much from them, especially the slightly older. Well, I have a 7-year-old and an almost 3-year-old. The 3-year-old still, he's just cute. He just makes me happy because he's cute. The older one, he's just so bright, and just kids are so smart. these days, especially. I mean, I just feel like with every generation, they learn more and more. And yeah, they can really pick you up as well. So get married, get kids, get a mentor, and you'll be fine.
I love it. I love that. I love that. It's great advice. And it's very true, because, you know, if you surround yourself with people that want the best for you, or want a successful, you know, everything for you to be successful, they're your teammates, right? They're rallying around you. And that's one of the main reasons why Sophie and I are so big on couples working together, because there should be no one else on the planet that wants your success more outside of yourself than your spouse. Like, that's just to me, it feels like it's low-hanging fruit, right? And so if you can work with your spouse who sees your situation and they even know that whatever benefits you is going to benefit them. So there's that extra layer. And same thing with your kids. There's no reason for them not to be on board with you on this journey. And that's why we're doing these podcasts, right, Rick, is so that we can talk with those people out there to help encourage them to start talking with their spouse about getting more serious about this and doing it together.
I have a true story. It was an investor conversation, and a lady had contacted me, and she was interested in Fortress Federation, and she wanted to learn more about syndication. So we had a nice conversation. And about halfway during that conversation, she was saying, now, is it okay if I establish an LLC with my brother? I'm like, yeah, sure. You guys can form an entity, invest in whatever you want. And she goes, and I should tell you, I haven't told my husband about any of this. He thinks this is all, you know, just a scam, and you know, investing in real estate, you'll just lose your money. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, you better get that ironed out first.
Yes.
Because there's no way you can be, you know, sneaking around that way. And you know, truth be told, there are a lot of people that are like that who aren't on the same page. You know, you guys are incredibly fortunate that you are exactly on the same page. And you know, my wife and I, we don't work closely together in real estate, but yeah, she's definitely a rock to lean on.
That's so awesome, Rick. And I wanted to ask you, and congratulations on your 2 boys.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we met, your oldest was probably just a couple of years old at that time.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're just an amazing father. And I just wanted to ask, you know, now you didn't think you would have kids, but now that you have these 2 boys and they're going to be watching what you're doing, and can you talk about a little bit about legacy and what you would like for them, and what you would like for them to see on a daily basis as they get older?
Yeah. Well, I think I want them to have entrepreneurial spirits. You know, it's funny. We've sort of fallen into that trap where we got to get in a good school district. You know, we got to get in at least a 9 or a 10. You know, there's the great, greatschools.org, and they have these ratings. And yeah, education, very important. But I don't want them to have the mindset that, you know, you have to follow this track and get a job and get a mortgage. And, you know, I want them to understand the entrepreneurial mindset a bit. And my oldest, he observes what I do. And what I was doing in the past, I would do like film titles or something for a movie, or I would do some sports graphics for ESPN or NFL. And I would always say, hey, see that? You know, I did that. And he thought, oh, that's cool. And he'd be like, wow, you know, you do movies, you do commercial. Well, it was sort of, yes, kind of like that, but he would see it and he'd be impressed. And now he's been like, well, what are you doing? Because this has been several years. I haven't been doing that. But like I was saying before, I still make videos, you know, little quick videos for what I do. I write articles and whatnot. And he always is observing, and he's asking me, oh, what's that commercial? And I just let him think, oh yeah, it's kind of like a commercial. Like the other day I was writing a blog about scarcity mentality versus abundance mindset. And I use this analogy of we have these 2 cats, Lionel and Oscar, both dudes, kind of cool cats. They're really cool, actually. But Lionel is about he's out for himself. Like when I pass out the treats, he'll like snatch it right out of Oscar's mouth if he can. Whereas Oscar is like this totally chill Zen kind of Garfield looking type guy, but he's like a giver. So he is definitely the abundance guy, and Lionel's definitely the scarcity guy. So Gabriel, my son, and I, we talked at length about that. He was like, "Why are the cats in your commercial or your advertisement?" and we talked at length about that. So I'm hoping, I'm leading by example, and it's rubbing off on him. And it's not time to hand him Rich Dad Poor Dad yet, but he's a good reader, and I think one day I will be handing him that book and filling in the blanks.
Very cool. I love those lessons in terms of legacy. It sounds like the educational piece is really big in your family, which is that's gonna come back in so many different ways. It's gonna be very cool to see what your kids are gonna do with that. But yeah. I wanted to pivot real quick, and I wanted to talk about superpowers, right? I wanted to ask you what superpower that you have that you've been able to use to leverage into your real estate success. And maybe it's something that you've had all along, or maybe it's something that you developed from your career working in the film industry.
Well, I would say it seems like I get a lot of when I have investor conversations, a reoccurring theme, which I always appreciate, is they always tell me that I break it down simply for them. I make it understandable and easy to wrap their heads around. And that's why they like hanging out and reading my other articles and stuff. So yeah. I guess that would be one, I hope.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. And then also, I mean, the graphics, right? And being able to do the marketing, that's all really, really important.
It is. It can be a trap because I'm not the best. I need to learn better how to delegate. And I will sometimes just like, I'm going to knock this out myself, where there would be a better use of my time. But I still have fun doing it. Like I have fun concepting. I'll do these sort of crude little animated type videos where I did something that basically breaks down what syndication is. And I have a fun time concepting it, storyboarding it. Not so much animating it. That's the stuff I need to hand off to Fiverr, which I have. Yeah. Which I have. But yeah, I'll still edit my own stuff. Do you guys ever do that type of stuff? Do you ever find yourself, or you pass that on?
Well, we're very fortunate in the fact that we have a really great assistant, and the assistant, what they do is we give them a topic or a title, and they know what overall concept we want, like from doing all this material previously for us. And they do calendars. So we basically give them a title for the topic of what we want to post every day, and then we pre-schedule all of our posts, and they just kind of come out. Like, so we give him a backlog of topics, and it's up to him to populate the graphics for it, make it look really nice, tell us when we can write the post for it, and then it gets scheduled on a calendar, and it gets done weeks or sometimes even months in advance. So that way we know it's being posted, and it doesn't have to be like a last minute scramble to try to get something out on social media.
That's great. Yeah. I think I heard you guys speaking with Ruben on his podcast, and he had some great nuggets in there for sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that, Rick. All right. Well, let's pivot one more time. And do you want to ask the question?
Yeah, I just have one question. So, Rick, since we met in Indy, that, the kind of our beginning of our journey, and we've both all scaled. And so what are some key components and things that you've done to help you scale easier? And then looking back, if you had to do it all over again, are there any things that you would change or you wish you knew starting out?
I would say key component wise, and I'm not the greatest at networking, but definitely network, because great things happen from that. I was trying to do everything myself, like a one-man band. And it's not only lonely, but it's a little boring, and you're just not gonna get to where you can go. That book, Who Not How, have you guys read that? I'm sure, most people have. I think there's some good lessons in there. And it's really helped me because yes, I was getting good at underwriting. I still enjoy understanding the market fundamentals. I love that stuff, and making sure that the market supports your business plan and all that. That's very important. I continue to do that, but it really wasn't until I started making some really good, solid partnerships in the parts of the country that I'm most interested in. I've been up in the Midwest. I really liked Columbus and I like Indy, but I kept getting sort of pulled down to the Southeast in Texas, and so I thought, well, I better make some contacts there because I was trying to fly out to Columbus. I was even flying to Tucson, Arizona, which was a market that I was sort of had my eye on for a while. Was not that easy, when you like. I have two little kids, and it does play a role. And I can't put it on my wife because she works. She actually is still working her career. Hopefully, we're going to retire her, one of these days, in the not too distant future. But her insurance does come in handy, I will admit. But it was time to sort of venture out and leverage other people, and make sure that I was going to benefit them as much as they were going to benefit me. So, and it really comes down to personality, and quirks and who you can sort of jive with, because you're with them. You're going to be with them for a while.
Yeah.
But I think that really helped me, because you can't do it all. They could be my boots on the ground. Now I have boots on the ground in Florida and Georgia and Texas, and I'm sure you guys understand it. It logistically it makes a heck of a lot more sense. And it gives me more deal flow that I can give to my investors. It's really upped my deal flow. Whereas before, you're really, gosh, I'm submitting this LOI, I hope it gets accepted, and it won't, or it doesn't, or something, and here we start over. So it's really helped. We did 6 solid deals this past year, and that wasn't happening before. And in terms of what was it basically what I would wish I'd done earlier?
Like what you wish you knew, what you wish you had done, anything you would have changed, just looking back.
I think I just wish, I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't take advantage of resources, like I should have. I heard about real estate. I was just kind of doing it. In fact, I had a really successful uncle, God rest his soul, who he'd be such a great mentor this day. And he was very impressed that I invested in Las Vegas those years ago. And then it didn't turn out so well. But, just tapping into him as a resource, reading some books. Back, when I got started, the internet really wasn't such a big thing. But yeah, I would definitely tap into more resources and tap into a network sooner, without question.
Great advice.
Yeah, very, very well said. I think that's very, very good stuff. So I have one last question before we head over into our rapid round. And that question is, when you're looking for deals right now, Rick, where you're looking for investment opportunities on behalf of your investors, and maybe even for yourself, because most syndicators, they invest alongside of their partners with them. That's what we do as well. What do you look for when you find these deals? What's the main thing that you look for, and walk us through what you would consider a no-go?
Yeah, I think you want to get an idea of the downside risk. Like, that's the first thing. The first thing I do is I just poke as many holes as possible into. By this time, I know the market fundamentals are there. Like, the market supports this building. Now, what's this building or what's this deal going to do to not make it a good deal? So I'll look for the downside risk and make sure that all the fundamentals are in place. In terms of, all right, are we well enough capitalized? is this building going to cash flow? Now, a lot of people, they'll do development or they'll do a heavy lift where there's a few years of no cash flow. That's definitely taking on risk.
Yeah.
Right now, I would say my investor base, they don't really like deals with that much risk. So I definitely look for deals with a good balance of cash flow and appreciation, and upside potential. I mentioned being well capitalized. Has to be extremely well capitalized. You can call it a rainy day fund, what if fund, your operating expenses, and plus like a contingency fund in there. For those that got into a deal of COVID and they didn't have a contingency fund, or they weren't well capitalized, they got into trouble, right? Because there was a lot of C-class buildings specifically that you had big swaths of tenants not paying, and if you weren't well capitalized, you were in trouble. And then the third thing would be just make sure you have the right debt that matches your business plan. It's tricky because you guys know this. You can't get locked into long-term debt if you're going to do a value add and seek a refinance in a couple of years, or even maybe look to sell early. If you get a long-term debt fixed, I remember thinking several years back, I got to get 10-year debt, and just lock this baby in and then nothing can happen. I'm bulletproof. But you're screwed, with those prepayment penalties. You're locked in and you can't pursue your business plan. You've just taken all the flexibility out of your exit strategies, all those options that you have. So the option is, right, to maybe get floating rate debt. It could be a long-term debt, but it's floating. But then you have to be careful. You have to make sure that you've figured in your forward curves. Forward curves are data you can get online that estimate what interest rates or forecast what interest rates might be. So you bake that into your underwriting. And then you probably definitely purchase a cap. Make sure it can't go your interest rate can't escalate any higher than say like 5%. So I just make sure, all right, we're covered. Like we can mitigate the risk. If something terrible does happen, or, look, we can't control if cap rates are going to rise. Everybody's fearful of that, right? Everybody thinks that interest rates are just going to spike with inflation, but I don't know. The Fed seems to have a lot of control these days over what's going on with interest rates, and personally, I don't see it spiking. I could see them maybe, incrementally rising. So just be aware of that. You can't predict a COVID. I definitely pulled out of a couple deals at COVID. I don't know about you guys,
right?
But,
we did also. We were looking at some stuff and we were just kind of scared for what was going to happen. And it turns out that it actually accelerated our returns on the properties that we actually held, which was incredible. Couldn't have predicted that.
No.
But yeah, absolutely couldn't agree with you more on this. And Rick, I think we could talk macroeconomics and assumptions and deal flow and mindset all day. But unfortunately, we do have to go to our rapid round and on the call so that we can get you back to your day as well. So you want to go into the rapid round?
Absolutely. Okay, Rick. So these 5 questions are meant to be answered in about 30 seconds or less. And the first
You'll be fine.
And the first question is, what book has had the biggest impact on you and why?
Well, I'm not going to say the obvious choice.
Yes, please.
But maybe the second obvious choice. I think I always get it wrong. I think The Miracle Morning. Did I say that right?
It.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I used to call it The Morning Miracle. It's The Miracle Morning. And I'm being a little bit of a fraud right now because I haven't been practicing it like I should. I need to reread it, but it really did help me. And I do still practice at least, what are they, the Savers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely routinely practice a couple of those every day. I'd like to practice more, but it's a great book if you've never read it. I think it's a great mindset book, and it just gets you up and off on the right foot.
Oh yeah, and Hal Elrod's story is just incredible. Like,
oh my goodness,
overcoming like death twice or something. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, can I quickly interject? You're asking me about mindset. That's another thing. Where I was saying, well, things always work out. Sometimes just think of other people, like first world problems, man. Like with some of the stuff that we go through, it's not that bad. It's always horrible because it's us, right? But just get out of your own mind sometime and compare to what other people have gone through, like Hal Elrod, and it's not so bad.
Oh, Rick,
100%.
so glad you said that. I think we both need to hear that with the crazy day that we've had. So thank you.
There's a lot of
So
stuff.
good.
Oh, I want to hear about this day. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it offline. But
All
the
right.
question is, if people wanted to emulate your success, what is the first actionable thing that they could do to follow in your footsteps?
I would say get out of your comfort zone, because I'm one to be in my comfort zone. And I feel quite uncomfortable doing certain things, and it always pays dividends. And I wanna continue to get out of my comfort zone. So I don't know if you guys ever watched Seinfeld, but I remember George would always do the opposite of what, because he would do. He was just like such a, I don't know, if you don't know George, you got to start watching Seinfeld. But he would just start doing the opposite. Just get out of your comfort zone. I think good things will happen.
I just have to say for the record that we're talking about mindset, and then we talked about George Costanza.
That is the opposite.
Pretty incredible right now. This podcast is
So
just
good.
We're setting records right now.
Yeah.
Well, learn from George's mistakes.
Learn from there you go. All right.
Yeah, and Rick, what small thing do most people not know about you?
What small thing? Gosh, I was just talking to a colleague. He was blown away that I had auditioned for a band back in the day. So back in the day in Seattle, while I was attending the UW, I had aspirations of being a musician, and at that time the grunge scene was going on, and so we're playing, we're rubbing shoulders with people like Nirvana and Soundgarden. I don't know if you remember those names, but
Nice.
Wow.
it was an exciting time in Seattle, and my band had just sort of broken up, and these two guys who were in another band got wind of that, and they were like, hey, would you be interested in playing guitar for us and maybe like a backup singer? And I'd say, yeah, I'd be honored, and so they were talking about an audition. So I came to the audition and we jammed. Actually, their other guitar player didn't show up because he was pissed off that they were looking at another guitar player. I think he felt threatened, but hopefully they're not listening to this.
I don't think so.
And it just so happened I didn't like their music. It didn't feel like me at all. So I politely declined their invitation, and they did go on to have some pretty large success. They were the first rock band ever signed to Madonna's label, and they were, I don't know if I should say their name because I'm saying
I was gonna say, are you gonna reveal their name?
Great guys, talented guys. Just their music wasn't my thing. Their name was Candlebox, and they never had like the fame of like a Soundgarden or
Sure.
Nirvana or Pearl Jam and all that. But they did have some pretty wild success there for a few albums. And it's just so funny to think, like, what would life be like? And I think my life would be better today, or is better today, that I didn't take that choice.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Probably.
it's good to hear.
Good to hear.
Yeah. And then Rick, how do you like to unwind and restore your creative juices by yourself?
Surfing, without a doubt.
Cool.
In fact, I like getting a surf in before podcast interviews, so I'm like feeling good, feeling loose, or like an important meeting, anything important, I want to surf that day. And unfortunately today it was flat and choppy, and I didn't go, so I apologize if I wasn't very good today on your show.
You're doing fantastic. This is a very real show.
I know I was just gonna say, so you're so zen, so grounded.
I love it. Last
Oh, you
question.
should see me after a surf, Sophie. Yeah. Next time.
Next
There you
time.
go.
Part 2. All right, last question is, what is your favorite family vacation spot?
Oh boy. Well, family vacation spot. Yeah, that it's fun. It's good that you stipulated that because I used to be sort of an adventurous traveler. I did some crazy trips into like Southeast Asia and
Nice.
the whole Pacific Rim, and my wife and I used to like to travel to Europe. But when you have kids, it needs to be easier because you're like putting strollers and formula and diaper bags, and you have like 10 things to get through security, and it's kind of a, it's a lot. It's funny though, I can actually handle it now. I remember thinking before that, like, oh my god, this is going to be a pain in the butt, having, because I'm not stopping traveling. But to answer your question, it's funny, we're going to Sayulita, Mexico in a week, which I'm really looking forward to. Now, we went there with Gabriel, our first, and it worked out well. But to answer your question in a very long way, I think the easiest trip is probably Maui, and it's easy, it's beautiful, we can surf and have little drinks with umbrellas on the beach while our kids run around. It's pretty
Love
fun.
it.
Yeah.
And it's also, year round. Like you can go anytime and it's going to be amazing. So I love that.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, Rick, thank you so much for coming on the show. We've had a lot of great stories, a lot of wisdom, a lot of great lessons learned from many years of investing in real estate, and some years unintentionally, but other years very intentionally and up with scale. So we really appreciate that. Before we leave, Rick, can you tell the listeners a little bit more about where they can find you online and maybe even reach out to you?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Go to fortressfederation.com, www.fortressfederation.com. There I have a little resource there that kind of introduces you to investing in syndications if you don't know much about it. And I have a ton of content that I share on there. And on there you can find a way to contact me, but you can always reach me at rick@fortressfederation.com or LinkedIn or, wherever you choose.
Sounds good. And I will recommend, I do recommend Rick's content. He's got a lot of great stuff on his social media feed on LinkedIn. That's the one that I follow the most. And then also on his website, got tons and tons of articles for you guys looking to just start out. So please do go visit Rick. Got some great stuff at his Fortress Federation. Exactly. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Rick, for coming on the show. And for those listeners that have listened all the way to the very end, thank you so much for doing so. And wherever you're listening or watching to this, we would love it if you guys could like or comment or subscribe. We just want to appease those algorithm gods so that we can get further and further up the chain of algorithm madness so that we can get exposure to more people and deliver this incredible content like we had from Rick today. So with that being said, that's all I wanted to say. And thank you all for listening. And Rick, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, you guys. That was a lot of fun. Enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
we had a blast. And this is Derek.
And this is Sophie.
We are signing off for the day. Thanks, everyone.